Coming up in this episode, Law and Order, Blood and Guts, and Tibetan swear words. All this plus the missing link on... Oi!
Steve! Marcia, get over here by the pool.
Yeah, good to see you, Jim.
Hi. Just make yourselves at home. Have a drink. Kind of like Pino, Graham.
Mighty fine hearts. I believe this is the price we agreed on.
In our last episode, Jack had a heart attack and needed a heart transplant. Nurse Carrie and Assistant Stewart were desperately waiting for Dr. Hackenslash when Steve, Dr. Hackenslash's car mechanic, arrived. Can Steve save Jack's life? And what about Carrie? Does she see something more in Steve than just good looks? And what about Stewart? Does he want something more in life than just being a heart-lung machine? And can Steve, a simple car mechanic, really perform a heart transplant?
Okay, where do we start?
We start from up here, Steve.
Ah.
The patient is open.
Heart-lung machine is on.
Heart lung machine? What does that do?
You can't just take a man's heart out. He'd die on the table.
The machine helps the patient breathe and pumps his blood for him.
But he's just blowing in the tube.
Budget cuts.
Are you ready, Steve?
Sure. Crescent spanner.
Crescent spanner.
Okay, looks like we're ready to put that new pump.
Heart, Steve.
Heart. Of course, that's what I meant. Okay. Which heart shall I try? Eeny, meeny, miny. This one.
Steve, we've got to have a perfect match between the heart and the patient. Otherwise, there'll be trouble.
Trouble?
Tissue rejection.
Your body fights disease by attacking anything that doesn't belong, like germs and other foreign stuff.
If that new heart doesn't match the patient's tissue, his body will know straight away and reject it.
Then there's nothing worse than a rejected heart, Steve.
Like fitting a Ferrari with Ford parts.
Ooh, whoa.
I see what you mean. I'll try the other half.
And don't worry, a perfect match is quite rare.
That's right. A person's tissue type can be as unique as his fingerprints, or his dark, smouldering eyes, or his firm, manly arms.
After the operation, we'll try to stop any rejection by using drugs.
Okay now, time to connect this baby up. Normally I'd just weld it in and use some pipe fittings.
That's not the way we join things around here, Steve.
Lucky I can sew. Okay now, how do we get it to pump regularly? Doesn't it have to be connected up to the brain or something?
No, that's okay. Every heart has its own built-in timer that keeps it beating regularly. But you've got to get it started, mister.
A built-in timer? This sure is different from car mechanics. How do we start her up?
With these, Steve.
What are these? Jumper leads?
Defibrillator paddles. We start the heart by applying an electric current.
Jumper lead, Steve.
All right, we're going to jumpstart his heart. Give me plenty of juice and stand clear. Then give me the juice. Come on.
I think he's going to make it.
Congratulations, Steve.
All right, what's going on here?
Dr. Hackenslash.
That was baloney. They wouldn't really let a mechanic do a heart transplant, would they?
Well, the first surgical delivery of a baby was performed by a Dutch pig doctor. Ha! Needs must when the devil drives. Click.
Your next patient has arrived, sir.
Send her in. Hi. Lay down on the couch. Relax. Think of me not as your psychiatrist, but as your friend.
Tell me, when did you first have this strange feeling that you were becoming a bee?
It was lunchtime. I was in the park.
Yes, carry on.
The flowers. I remember smelling the nectar in the flowers and thinking, I've got to tell everyone about this.
Well, this seems perfectly normal so far. Then what happened?
I went back to work to tell them, but I wanted to tell them like a bee.
Like a bee?
Yes, like a bee. Bees tell each other where flowers are all the time.
I see. What happened then?
I did the waggle dance.
The waggle dance?
Yes, the waggle dance. That's how bees tell each other where flowers are. Of course, real bees do it on the wall and in the dark, not in the air-conditioned luxury of a modern office block.
Yes. And what do you think all this means?
Well, that waggle up the centre...
Yes?
Yeah, well, the length and the number of waggles in that bit tells the other bees how far away the flower is.
I see. So, if you only do a little waggle...
Then the flower isn't very far away. If you go a long way with a lot of waggle...
Then the flower is a long way off.
Exactly.
Fine. So how do the bees know which way to go then?
Well, that's the clever part. Whenever I'm away from the hive, office, I make a note of the angle between the flower, the office, and the sun, and that angle is reflected in my dance.
What?
Have a look at this.
Nice picture. You have a very healthy imagination.
Thanks. Now, if the flower you've just been at is directly in line with the sun, then there's no angle at all to worry about. So on the wall of her hive, a real bee would do the waggle bit straight up and down.
So the other bees will fly off in the direction of the sun.
Right. Now then, if the flower is off at some angle to the sun, she adjusts her dance on the wall of the hive to show that angle.
All right. So if the flower is over here, then she would dance like this?
Exactly.
So, what if it's cloudy then?
Yeah, good point. Honeybees don't have that problem. They have different eyesight from us. They can tell where the sun is from just a tiny patch of blue sky. But you're right, on completely cloudy days, they do tend to get lost.
Right. So, how did your co-workers respond to this waggle dance?
They all flew straight to the flowers. I'm losing my mind, aren't I, Doctor?
Not a bit. Why, you're as sane as the next person. Now, if you'll just excuse me. As sane as the next person, sure. The next person thinks she's a giant chicken. Oh, this is good. Now I know where this flower is. I can tell everyone how to get there using the waggle dance. Whoa. Oh.
All right, what's going on here?
Dr. Hackenslash.
We've just put a new pump in this baby.
Without me? Blast! How did it go?
Very well, Doctor.
Run it easy for the next 1,000 kilometres and you can expect trouble-free motoring. Here's a 12-month warranty.
Oh, good.
So where were you?
Caught. Would you believe someone was suing the Hackenslash clinic for malpractice? Some patient actually claimed that we let unskilled staff treat him.
Which patient?
Abbott. You remember that badly cut foot? The chap claimed we let a plumber attend him. Said it was all botched up.
I remember that case. Phil the gardener treated him.
Exactly. The chap didn't have a shred of evidence. It just came down to a case of his word against mine.
So what happened?
Well, in such cases, it's quite simple. The judge listens to your case and weighs up your words.
You mean he considers your testimony and the evidence before him?
No, he actually weighs your words. Both parties state their case into a vessel and they're weighed. If I was innocent, my words would weigh more and tip the scale.
But the containers would just contain air. They would balance and you'd have been found guilty.
Exactly, but I was ready for that. I'd bought a bottle with some vinegar in. I also had some bicarbonate of soda. I mixed the two together. What happens is the two react together and give off carbon dioxide gas. Soon the bottle was full of the stuff. Carbon dioxide gas looks just the same as air, but is heavier. So I told them I had some additional testimony that I'd like to submit. The judge let me pour these additional words into the balance. Naturally, the heavier carbon dioxide tipped the scales. The judge declared me innocent and, of course, awarded me compensation. My friends, a toast.
My friends, let's toast this wondrous gas. Compared to air, it has more mass. So many things this gas will do.
It's carbon dioxide.
CO2. CO2 weighs more than air, but less than doctors do. When you exhale, it's what comes out of you. And what do you think? It doesn't smell, it doesn't stink. It puts the fizz in fizzy drink. It's CO2. It has no color, it's not red or blue. If you have vinegar and sodium bicarbonate too, then you can make some CO2. Hey, you know, I've seen better tongues on sneakers. CO2. So many clever things this gas will do. It puts out fires and makes the plants grow too. I'll sing it again. It even helps you entertain. It puts the bubbles in champagne. CO2. It can be found in Norway or Peru. If you have vinegar and sodium bicarbonate too, then you can make some CO2.
Oh, somebody turn the lights out.
Police are warning the public not to approach the beast. The missing psychiatrist has so far not been identified. And now for the latest in the global plate crisis. The world supply of plates continues to dwindle as governments launch new initiatives to cope. In Tokyo, the Japanese government announced a $14 squillion project to find a synthetic plate substitute. And in Mombasa, Kenyan authorities are stepping up their captive plate breeding program. And in Australia, it's been suggested that global plate warming could be the cause of the problem.
Mr. Prime Minister, here is that special report you ordered on the global plate warming crisis.
Well, put it on, man, put it on.
Yes, sir. We think we've cracked it, sir. It looks like ovens may be the problem.
Ovens?
Ovens, sir. Seems they're making most plates too hot to handle. If this continues, won't be a single plate left in the wild by the end of the century.
I see. Is there anything that can be done?
There may be, sir. Microwave ovens.
Microwave ovens?
Absolutely, sir. It seems that with a microwave, you can heat up food without heating up the plate.
They heat up the food and not the plate?
Yes, sir. The edge of the plate can be quite cool while the food reaches extremes of temperature.
Well, how can that be?
It would appear that microwave ovens heat food in a special way.
Special? Well, what do you mean?
It seems that they shine a kind of invisible light onto the food.
Hey, what are those wavy lines?
The light, Prime Minister.
You said it was invisible, man.
It is, sir. These wavy lines have been added for your benefit.
Oh, I see. Well, carry on, then.
Thank you, sir. Now, inside the food are microscopic water molecules.
Good God, what are they doing there?
There's some water in most food, sir. Nothing to be alarmed about. Now, the microwaves have a particular effect on water. They make it vibrate. Because it's inside the food, it makes the food vibrate also. And that rapid jiggling around we call heat.
Vibrating victuals. Is this true? Heat was just a kind of microscopic jiggling?
Absolutely. Now, you'll notice that the plate contains no water molecules. There's nothing in it to be affected by the microwave, so nothing vibrates, nothing gets hot.
Amazing! But I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, let me explain it using the idea of a dance.
A dance? Now, wait a minute. This hasn't got anything to do with bees, has it?
Bees? Bees?
Oh, never mind. Carry on.
Okay. Imagine a dance. Now, at your average dance, some people are going to like music and some people are not.
Yeah, I've been to dances like that.
Yes, sir. So those who like the music will get up and dance to it, while the others sit it out, unmoved.
Are these people supposed to represent what happens in the microwave? The waves make them move while your food doesn't respond.
Yes, sir. Well done.
Not a bucket, you know.
No, sir. Eventually, in a room full of dancers, everybody's going to be jostled. Pretty soon, the whole crowd is moving around and things are rocking along.
Okay, I think I get the picture. I've been to parties like this. Oh, hang on a minute. Who's that?
That's the neighbours, Prime Minister. They can hear the music, but it's not really their cup of tea. And since there's nobody there to jostle them around and get them up dancing, they remain unmoved by the whole affair.
There's nobody in there who likes the music. So these people are like the plate, right? It's got no water molecules in it, so there's nothing for the microwave to heat up.
Precisely. You understand, sir.
They don't let you run the country if you're a complete set of crockery, you know?
Quite, sir. Shall I remove the tape?
No. Leave it in. I'll give me something to watch while I run the country.
Very good, sir.
Discovery is a strange business. In 1912, a German gentleman came up with an idea that literally moved the continents. Alfred Wegener was a meteorologist. That is to say, he studied the weather. But not just any weather. Alfred's specialty was really cold weather, the kind you get at the North Pole, the kind that makes glaciers and icebergs. In fact, Alfred was a bit of a polar explorer too, having been to Greenland to study the weather there. Anyway, another of Wegener's interests. Another of his interests was a weather that had happened millions of years ago. The way to tell what the weather was way back then is to look at rocks. Alfred was not really an expert in rocks, but that didn't stop him from having a good look at some. And what he found confused him. The rocks he looked at from all over the world suggested that lands that are warm today, like India, had once been somewhere very cold, like the South Pole. Could the land masses have moved? Now, if Alfred had been a geologist, he probably wouldn't have asked this question, because all the good geologists of the day firmly believed that the continents did not move. But Alfred was a weatherman and could daydream such things. Perhaps the continents had once been in other places. Perhaps they had been joined together, and perhaps they had drifted apart. Alfred was convinced that he was onto a good idea. People had suggested before that the outlines of some continents, like South America and Africa, made a good fit, like a jigsaw puzzle. But Alfred Wegener...
Wegener.
was the only one to really go with the idea and give it a name. So, in 1912, Alfred shared with the world his theory of continental drift. Unfortunately, few people took him seriously. The geologists already had a theory that said the continents did not move. And although he firmly believed he would be proven right one day, he got on with other things, like studying the weather and exploring Greenland. But that's not the end of the theory of continental drift. Many years later, in the 1950s, some geologists were starting to think that Alfred may have been right after all. What changed their mind was magnetic rocks. When magnetic rocks are formed, the magnetism in them lines up with the north and south magnetic poles. But the magnetic lines in some rocks point to different positions for the magnetic poles. The best explanation is that the rocks have changed positions since they were made. More evidence came from studying new rocks from the ocean floor. It was discovered that the ocean floor is actually spreading forcing the continents apart. Nowadays, most geologists think that the continents were all part of one big supercontinent called Pangaea. Then they drifted apart, like Alfred had said all along. So, Alfred, the meteorologist who dared to dream about the continents, was recognized as being right after all. The only problem is, back in 1930, while studying the weather in Greenland, the father of continental drift, Alfred Wegener, Alfred Wegener, died. So he never knew. Discovery is a strange business. Now stop that. We're not going to have any more of this nonsense. This unusual creature and its interesting back was never intended to saw things into little pieces. It is, in fact, a pelycosaur, an ancient reptile and owner of the first solar heating panel. This sail on the creature's back was once supplied with many tiny blood vessels. As the sun came up in the morning, come along. It would use the heat of the sun to warm its blood, making it lively and vigorous, and not able to catch the more sluggish animals of the day. If it got too hot, it would simply turn away from the sun and cool down. Pity they're extinct, really. The study of fossils is itself a fascinating occupation, one that has engaged some very fine minds. In 1912, in a tiny corner of England called Piltdown, two such minds were hard at work. They belonged to a Mr. Charles Dawson and a Monsieur Teilhard Desjardins. In this gravel pit was the biggest con in the history of science, and nobody ever owned up to it.
They found it in the gravel, they dug it up by hand, and soon the name of Piltdown spread throughout the land. They couldn't keep it quiet, everybody spread the news. It was a find of the century, prehistoric Piltdown fossil blues. Now all the wise professors, so eager to believe, they didn't stop to wonder if they had been deceived and changed the course of science. Well, nobody had a clue about the find of the century, prehistoric Piltdown fossil blues. Prehistoric Piltdown, such a famous fossil. Prehistoric Piltdown, subterranean colossal. Prehistoric skull makes headline news. I got the prehistoric Piltdown blues. Now all the skulls from Africa, they couldn't change their stand. For 40 years the world believed that this was ancient man. So somebody actually tested it and found it was all a clever ruse.
It was the height of the century.
Prehistoric Piltdown fossil blues. Prehistoric Piltdown, such a famous fossil. Prehistoric Piltdown, subterranean colossal. Prehistoric skull makes headline news. I got the prehistoric Piltdown blues. Who did it? Nobody confessed. It fooled them all for 40 years. No one ever guessed. That's all there is to tell now. We'll always be confused. It was the fraud of the century that gave the folks a jostle. Fraud of the century. The ripoff was colossal. The fraud of the century. Prehistoric Piltdown fossil blues. Yeah.
Ironic. They believed in Piltdown Man, but didn't like continental drift.
That's funny. I believe in continental quilts, but don't like feather down.
What are you going on about? I'm talking about the ironies and shortcomings of discovery.
And today, I discovered an iron in my shorts. Coincidence? I think not.
I don't believe this.
Nobody's going to believe this.
I just said that.
And I said it too. Good grief, it's amazing. It's incredible. I'm ahead of my time, like that guy Wechner.
Wegener.
Thanks, Wegener. Man, send for the experts. I should be studied. I'm a walking phenomenon. Call the television, call the papers. Hey, who said that?